Okay, this is Joseph from NizhoniPhoto.com, and today I'm going to talk about the split toning panel. Now, split toning, this is a tool in Lightroom that's often overlooked, but you really shouldn't overlook this tool because it can have a really dramatic impact on your photography. So essentially what split toning does is you can manipulate the hues in your highlights or the hues in your shadows, and you can do those separately and kind of balance them together. And when you do it, you can kind of create like a really cool ethereal effect in your photos. You can completely transform them and just change them by adjusting the hues, or you can kind of balance out unwanted hues that are in your photos. For example, in this photo we have up here, this is completely edited, but after I was done, I realized that although I love the detail and the colors in the sky, there's just too much of a magenta tint all the way through the photo, but particularly in the foreground. I'm not really so concerned about the magenta in the sky. I kind of like it, but it's the magenta in the foreground that's really kind of bugging me. So I'd like to get rid of that. Now, one way I can do that is I can just counterbalance the magenta. And to do that, all I have to do is add in some green tint, right? So I can do that, maybe not quite that much, down to 25, and already that's a pretty big difference. But I think I can get something a little bit better by working in the HSL panel. So I'm going to show you that. Now, before we go any further, I'm going to create a snapshot here. Let's see. Oops, call this one. Now I'm going to go into snapshots in another video, so don't worry about that right now. But snapshots are important, so make sure you watch that video. But yeah, let's go into the split toning panel. Okay. Now, again, toning. Essentially, what we're doing is we're adjusting the highlights, the hues, either in our highlights and in our shadows. Okay. Let's go ahead and play around with this first. One way to play around with the hue setting in the split toning is to actually hold down the Option key and then just slide your slider until you kind of see a point in your photo that you kind of like. Now, what this is doing is this is showing you the hue settings at 100% saturation, because on its own you can see I can slide the slider around, but I'm not really seeing anything because this effect isn't applied until I actually apply saturation to it. Okay. Although I just don't like any of the changes that I'm seeing when I adjust this the shadows in the split toning. Okay, let's actually go back to our original setting here. Okay. I don't really like what I saw when I worked with the shadows, so let's play around with the highlights a little bit. Okay. Now again, you can hold Option and you can adjust it this way, but as I've mentioned multiple times in this class, I don't really like using the sliders. I like using my keyboard instead, because you can get a much better control over what you're doing by using the keyboard. So to do that method, all you have to do is add saturation and then click on the number to the right of the slider, and you can now adjust your image with the arrow keys, either up or down. Now, if you hold the shift, you can adjust this by larger increments. So we know here, this looks awful. Let's keep increasing it. We're starting to look a little better there. That looks really good. That looks pretty good, getting a little too blue. And then once we go further, we are way too blue. Okay, so we've kind of found a starting point for where we want to work. Okay, so we're going to back down a little bit. I like that. That's a little too far. We're getting even closer. You see, we're kind of narrowing down this working area. Okay, so let's increase it a little bit. Okay, now between 86 and 76, I think my setting is somewhere in between. Now, I like the magentas in the sky, but I don't like them in the foreground here. Whereas in this image, I like the foreground a lot more, and the clouds are acceptable, but I would like to maybe get away with a little bit more magenta in them. So to do that, between 86 and 76, I'm going to go halfway in between, about there. Alright, now we will click this toggle to see a before and an after, and holy smokes, that is a big difference there. Okay, now let's look at the before and the after, to where if I had just set the white balance, the tint, and nothing else. That's not accurate. Hold on. I think I was down. Oh no, actually, that is. Sorry about that, guys. So yeah, that's between this and that. I think that's a dramatic difference between these two photos. Okay, so that's kind of split toning in a nutshell. Let's look for another photo where we might be able to get a better understanding of how split toning works. Okay, let's go here. Go into the develop panel and click on split toning. Alright, so let's play around with this a little bit, okay? First we will start by messing around with our hues. Alright, we're going to hold Option key down to kind of look at it. See if there's an area in here that looks neater than the one that we're already working in. Okay, so it's not here. That's too far magenta. This is getting more interesting. Maybe somewhere there. That looks kind of cool. Okay, so now that we've set our hue point, let's set our saturation, okay, to kind of balance that. Now, does that look good? Nah. Okay, that has nothing applied to it, so maybe let's try splitting the difference a little bit. Maybe here. Kind of gives us more of a warm glow to this image. We'll see a before and an after. Yeah, more of a warm glow to what we're doing. Now let's mess around with the shadows. Okay, let's see what we're working with. Let's see. I'm kind of liking the more blue tones. Okay, let's see how that looks. Okay, maybe somewhere around there. Okay, now that we've set these two, the tones in the highlights and in the shadows, what the balance slider does is it decides whether or not you're going to favor the shadows or the highlights. So this is something that you can kind of play around with a little bit. So if we go more towards the left, we're favoring the shadows, or if we go more towards the right, we're favoring the highlights more. I definitely like what we're doing when we go more to the right. I like how the image is looking when we're sliding more to the right. Alright, let's stay there just for an example, and let's see a before and an after. So you see, this isn't really a super awesome example. I'm not too hot about what we've done here, but I'm just using this as an example to show you what a big impact we've made to our image by working with the split toning. Okay, so again, this is the before and the after. Actually, you know what? It's growing on me a lot more. I actually like this image a lot more now that we've applied split toning to it. I don't know, I just think we've achieved more of a golden hour look with this, and we've kind of gotten rid of that blue tint that was in the photo. A more correct way to describe that is a cooler tint. This is a cooler tint with stronger magenta tones, whereas this is still preserving the magenta tones in the sky, which is nice, but overall in the image we're seeing more of a golden, warm, light type tone in this image, okay? So that's the split toning. This is something that you can just play around with. It's something that I'm still learning, and hopefully you'll continue to learn more about it and use this as just another tool in your Lightroom toolkit. Alright, well, I hope this video was helpful, and stay tuned for more. Thanks.